Lakeland Public Television, the Bemidji Pioneer, the Brainerd Dispatch, and Northern Community Radio are proud to present Debate Night 2016, a look at our area legislative candidates. And now the State Senate District 5 debate, and your moderator tonight is Warren Larson.
Good evening and welcome to Debate 2016, 11 state legislative debates over 4 nights. We're in Lakeland Public Television studio in Bemidji, Minnesota. Our candidates for tonight's debate are Tom Saxhog, the Democratic Farm Labor Party, and Justin Eichhorn from the Republican Party. Our panel this evening is Dennis Wyman, Lakeland Public Television News Director, Matthew Lidke, Bemidji Pioneer Reporter, Heidi Holton, News and Public Affairs Director, Northern Community Radio, KAXE and KBXE. Now for our rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes for opening comments. Our panel will ask questions after opening comments. Some will be their own questions, others may be from the public. The candidates will rotate the order they speak, beginning with opening comments and finishing with closing comments. Each candidate gets 2 minutes to answer the questions. Each candidate will have a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity. New this year, candidates will have the option of using 1 minute of bonus time to add on to one of their answers tonight. They can be used during the answer to an initial question or during the rebuttal, but can only be used once. Questions continue until we are about 50 minutes into the debate, when we move on to closing comments. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for closing comments. So now let's start the debate. Mr. Saxhog, your opening comments.
Hi, I'm State Senator Tom Saxhog. For the past 4 years, it's been my privilege and honor to represent Senate District 5, which covers parts of Beltrami, Itasca, Cass, and Hubbard counties in north central Minnesota. In my previous Senate years, I represented Senate District 3, which ran from the northwest angle down to Mille Lacs Lake. I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, graduated from Grand Rapids High School and St. Olaf College. Nancy and I married 45 years ago. We have 2 grown children. Our daughter Susie is an elementary school teacher in Deer River and has 2 children with her husband Dan. Our son Tim is a professional musician in the band Trampled by Turtles. I come from a 3rd-generation Grand Rapids business family and was an independent insurance agent for 36 years. Always interested in public service, I served in a volunteer capacity in many clubs, committees in the Grand Rapids area, and that up to my election to the Grand Rapids City Council in 1993, the Itasca County Board in 1996, and in 2002 I was first elected to the Minnesota Senate, and I'm now running for my 5th term. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Eichhorn, your opening comments.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to start by saying thank you to the panel here this evening. I really appreciate you guys putting this on for us. It's great that we're able to do this for the community. Thank you. My name's Justin Eichhorn. I'm running for Senate District 5 as a Republican this year. I grew up in Grand Rapids. I've been there my entire life. I grew up in a business store there that my family owns. I would be the 3rd generation of that. And I've got a lot of knowledge base from that, and I've really enjoyed growing up in that store. I have a wife that I've been married to 9 years, Brittany. Very lucky there. And I have 4 wonderful kids, ranging from 2 to 7. And I've also been involved in the Grand Rapids Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board. I graduated from Grand Rapids High School in 2003. I went on to Itasca Community College in Grand Rapids, and then later finished my degree in Organizational Management and Leadership at Concordia University in St. Paul. I think this is a real opportunity, a real time for change, not only in the country but in Senate District 5 and in the state of Minnesota. There's certainly some opportunities for us to move Minnesota forward, and I'm excited to be able to take on those challenges and excited to be here tonight to talk about some of those challenges facing our state. And I look forward to the debate and onward to November. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our first question would come from Dennis Wyman from Lakeland News, and that would go to Mr. Eichhorn.
All right, thanks, Warren, and thanks both of you for being here tonight to share your thoughts with the viewers and readers and listeners throughout the area. My question is health insurance. Is it something we seem to talk about at these debates every 2 years, and yet there continue to be major issues with health insurance in Minnesota? High costs are difficult for not just families, but businesses who try to provide benefits for their employees. Can you assess the current state of MNsure and health insurance costs in Minnesota, and what would you do to help improve this if elected?
Well, quite simply, MNsure is an absolute mess. As can be seen, we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a website that doesn't work. There's still tens of thousands of people not insured. Rates for people that are lucky enough to be insured are going up. We've got people that I've been talking to that are starting to talk about whether they're going to have health insurance or whether they're going to buy food. I mean, there's people that are in a real tough spot because of MNsure. In my opinion, I think MNsure needs to be scrapped. We need to get rid of it. We were in a much better place before MNsure came about. The previous system we had in Minnesota, there was a few less people insured, but people were insured at a better rate. We had lower costs. We had better coverage. Certainly, if we had spent that hundreds of millions of dollars on, helping the needy be insured, we'd be a lot farther ahead right now than we would be had we, went the MNsure route. We need to look at, doing some high risk pools. We need to, look at peeling that back and maybe, letting people go into that federal exchange. There's some opportunities there. I mean, if we take the money that we were spending on MNsure and try to use that to help the people in need, let them go into the federal exchanges, I think that's another area we're going to be a little better off. We also need to look at a few other things, but my time is up, so I'll pass it on.
All right. Well, thank you. Mr. Saxog, same question.
Well, MNsure, the thing to remember about MNsure, of course, it's a delivery system. It's not a health plan. It's not a provider. It's quite simply our shot at delivering health care to approximately 10% of the people in Minnesota. We got that down now to 5%, and as my opponent said, it seems like things aren't going very well. But the real problem here, of course, is the high cost of health care, which for decades has bugged us. We cannot provide health care in this country in a way that makes it viable for us to take on health care. So what's my answer? My answer is yes, we should go down to the state capitol. There was a solution in the conference committee in this last spring that would have taken care of it. We could not get together on it. It did not get done, but I believe that this spring we will be able to get together, and particularly with the problems that have come up, and solve this problem.
Okay. Any rebuttal?
Yeah, the solution I believe he's referring to came up in a previous forum in which my opponent and Mr. Senator Tomassoni had said that we should go down the single payer path for Minnesota. Let's get rid of MNsure and have Minnesota be a single payer. They've done such a great job with that website. That's probably a grand idea in I don't know which world, but not this one. We certainly shouldn't be going down that rabbit hole. There are other things we can do. We certainly need to assess this. The middle class in Minnesota is certainly hurting, and the solutions that they're bringing forward are certainly not going to help the middle class by any means.
Mr. Saxog, your rebuttal?
Well, the solution is getting everybody covered at a reasonable rate, like the rest of the world does. And so that's what we should be doing. If that means that everybody has something like Medicare, maybe that's the way to go. But we do have to come up with a solution, not just, hey, let's scrap everything and start over.
All right. Our next question will go to Mr. Saxog, and it will come from our panelist, Matthew Lidke.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you, Mr. Saxog. I'd like to ask about the bonding bill, if you'd support it in the upcoming 2017 session, and subsequently with that, what happens if the Metro Rail project comes up again this session in 2017?
Well, last things first, when we start talking about light rail, which was one of the reasons why the bonding bill was stalled, I guess would be a best way, between the end of the last session and what's coming up. And I believe that the solution for the application to Washington DC is taken care of now, and that will not be something that's going to stop the bonding bill. As far as the bonding bill goes, it's very important. It's particularly important to this part of the country for Hagsauer, the building on the Bemidji State campus, for the Northern Minnesota Vets Home, which Northwestern Minnesota just doesn't have a Vets Home. We don't take care of the vets like we should. The dental center that we should have in the Bemidji area, money for our forestry roads, and money for the Rife Center in Grand Rapids. Not to mention the PFA money, which would be an excellent way for some of our infrastructure, our city's infrastructures to be redone. So I'm for it. It will get done this year, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eichhorn, same question.
I'm also in support of the bonding bill that was brought forward during the 2016 year. It was a good bill. It was one of the most bipartisan bonding bills in decades. Typically, Republicans get flack for not wanting to support bonding bills because a lot of times there's a lot of junk in them. But this time, there was a lot of good stuff in that bill. Going forward, if I'm lucky enough to be your senator, I would certainly support that bill as it was at the end of the 2016 session. Now, when we get to light rail, if light rail is added to that, I'm out. It doesn't make any sense for outstate Minnesota to be spending billions of dollars on a train. I realize the whole state's paying for this, and it doesn't make a lot of sense here in outstate Minnesota. We should really be thinking about what's best for Senate District 5, and there was some good stuff in here for Senate District 5. And unfortunately, because of a train, the DFL killed it. He talked about some money that was going to come from DC for that train, and I'm not sure where the DFL thinks that money is going to come from. I realize the federal government's going to give it to us, but where'd they get it from in the first place? From us. So, we really got to address some of the taxing issues. Also, a part of that, there was a tax bill that went along with it that would have provided some tax relief to middle-class families in northern Minnesota, and that's something we certainly need to look at passing as well when we get back to work in January.
Okay.
Transportation has been something that the federal government has taken care of for many years, particularly since the time of Eisenhower, and will continue to do that. I might note that when the bonding bill came over from the House, Hagsauer was not in it. The Republican bonding bill that came over from the House did not include Hagsauer, and that's probably the most important piece for this part of the country.
Mr. Eichhorn, rebuttal?
Again, I would certainly support that bonding bill as it was presented before. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and I think that's something that needs to be a first order of business when session reconvenes, and again, I would certainly support that.
Okay. Our next question is to Mr. Eichhorn, and it comes from our panelist Heidi Holton from KAXE and KBXE.
Thanks, Warren. Mr. Eichhorn, my question has to do with jobs and the environment. In the last month, the protest over the Dakota Pipeline project has grown from a local, mainly Native protest to what MinnPost has described as a watershed event in modern American history. So this is something that comes up all the time in rural areas, a complex issue of jobs versus the environment. How do you approach it?
Well, jobs versus the environment, we certainly need to be good stewards of our environment, and I certainly support that. But there is a lot of advances in technology. We have a lot of good engineers that have really made inroads in making sure that things like the pipeline are done in a safe and effective manner. The pipeline is certainly one of the most effective and safe ways to transport anything right now. When we're looking at putting some of this on rail instead, we see derailments and we see bigger environmental hazards by trucking it and railing these type of things. So we certainly need to look at being supportive of any of these pipelines. It's unfortunate the one in Minnesota that got turned down. There was an opportunity there certainly for that pipeline to come through and the tax base to increase in areas where that pipeline would have run through. It's a safety issue, and also another issue that was brought up before at a previous forum is that it's also a national security issue. For us to keep that oil coming through our own lands instead of it being transported outside of the country in some other way, shape, or form, it also helps keep us energy independent. And again, there is that balancing act, as you stated. But I think we do a good job of that, and we have good people in place to make sure things like that are done safely. And we really need to be supportive of those industries in our state as well.
All right, Mr. Saxog, same question.
Well, it's jobs versus the environment. If environment was just sacred ground, and those areas that are sacred ground need to be dealt with in a different way. But that, getting past that, again, trains are a worse way of taking oil from one place to another than a pipeline, in my mind, and that's for sure. And what we've got to get down to here is that there's very little question in my mind when we get to science and engineering and the ability that this country has to and has had to overcome obstacles that we've had in the past. We've always been able to do it, and this would be the same with iron mining and non-ferrous mining and all sorts of things. We ought to be able to overcome this. It's not that you can't do this. You just have to spend the time and the money to get it done. So I believe that again, with some exclusions, with some things that we have to carefully look at, that we can move oil with a pipeline.
All right. Mr. Eichhorn, a rebuttal?
And we certainly should move oil with a pipeline. He also brought up mining, which is a great point. That's another thing we need to look at. But we've got the DFL party fighting mining tooth and nail, fighting forestry. Whether Tom is or isn't is, I guess, whether or not to be seen. I guess I've seen to some degree that there has been some fighting against it. But the DFL party as a whole has been fighting against mining, and it's pretty hard to fight against your own party. When it comes down, to these jobs that are important to us, whether it be pipeline jobs or mining jobs, we certainly need to be supportive of those industries, including mining, not fighting against them in the state, because again, we do have some of the brightest people in the world in this state working on these projects, and we can do it safely, and they want to do it safely, and we can, so we should.
Okay. Mr. Saxog?
Well, rural Minnesota has been pretty good at supporting not only mining but forestry, and that's a little question. It hasn't made any difference really if it's been the Republicans or the Democrats. So I think that doesn't hold much water. My opponent's assumption that the Democrats aren't for mining and aren't for forestry and all the things that bring jobs to northern Minnesota.
All right. Our next question will go to Mr. Saxog, and that will be from Dennis Wyman.
What do you see as the biggest education issues facing schools in our part of the state? What would you do to help even out the disparity between metro schools and non-metro schools?
Well, I see education, we've been short on in a couple of different ways. One is just plain we aren't getting the amount of money that the metropolitan schools get. But aside from the fact that if we got that, I had a bipartisan Senate workforce that got together, and all rural senators, 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. We found quite quickly that a trained, educated workforce is what ultimately will keep people and bring jobs to rural Minnesota. We didn't find anybody who said they wouldn't bring jobs to rural Minnesota. They said that they wouldn't do it if they didn't have a trained, educated workforce. And so that's one of the 2 things. The second thing that's terribly important, I believe, is early childhood. The fact that if we don't and aren't able to get our children to read by the time they're in the 3rd grade, we very well may have lost them. And we need to continue to invest in early childhood, and to that point, I think that we can overcome what has been one of our shortfalls.
All right. Mr. Eichhorn?
as far as education's concerned, and teachers and educators I've talked to, it seems like to some degree teachers have lost control of their classrooms, not by any fault of their own, but by state and federal policies such as Common Core, which is a complete nightmare. That's one thing we need to get rid of, give the teachers back control of their classroom. Another thing I think we need to do is we spend so much time teaching to the test, teach to the test, teach to the test, the kids lose sight of real world stuff that's happening that we should be teaching to. At the high school level, we talk about getting jobs back to this area and having a trained workforce. Why don't we bring some of these technical, vocational type programs back at the high school level, get these kids going so that they can maybe get out of college with a part of a plumbing degree or some type of trades degree that they can go on and right into the workforce, or give them a kind of a catapult to get onto the vocational college type level. That's also going to alleviate some of the college debt, certainly, by bringing some of those programs back in. It's going to train our students well. The thing that was mentioned was money. Just throwing money constantly at the school isn't going to necessarily fix it. You throw the money at the school, and it seems like every year, and this is one of my frustrations, it seems like it gets eaten up in administration. Every spring, summer, you hear about all these teachers that are fired, and it's just a travesty that happens. And then you hear that they hire more administrators, and it's absolutely frustrating. We need to make sure that money that's going to the schools gets allocated to classrooms and not to administration. We need to make sure that our students have all the resources they need, and to do that, we need to make sure that we're really dedicating some of those funds and making sure teachers have control of their classrooms again.
Mr. Saxog, rebuttal?
Yes, Representative Ann Zels and myself were the head of a group who started a vocational group up at Grand Rapids High School. That's the location, but it is a combination of IASC, which will be Greenway, Grand Rapids, and Nashwauk-Keewatin, along with Itasca Community College. This is a vocational program. It's exactly what we're talking about and exactly what we need, and we're going to continue to do that.
All right. Mr. Eichhorn?
We should certainly continue to do that and expand it. Obviously, there's not a lot of students know about it at this point. Maybe we're not doing enough in that area. Need to look at expanding that. That's one area that we can certainly help our students out. And again, we just need to peel back some of the Common Core type stuff that is causing real headaches in the classroom, not only for teachers but for students.
All right. Thank you. Our next question comes from Matthew Ledke, and it goes to Mr. Eichhorn.
Mr. Eichhorn, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about transportation. In the bonding bill this past year, there was some transportation funds, but would you support a large-scale, long-term transportation bill moving forward?
I would certainly support a long-term type transportation bill. I think transportation, roads and bridges is a core function of state government, and that's something we absolutely need to put money in. I mean, again, as I stated, core function of state government. As far as I don't know what you're alluding to, if you're alluding to a gas tax or something of that sort, certainly not. That's regressive. It hurts the lower and middle classes more than any other class when you start adding the gas taxes. So that's certainly something I would not support. But we need to, when we're looking at our budgeting, make sure that not only are we taking the funds that are dedicated funds for roads and bridges, I think we need to take some additional funds and make sure that those areas of our state are well funded, because it's very important. And I mean, it's important to Senate District 5 as well as the entire state. That's something we definitely need to do.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Saxog?
Well, I believe that we have to have a dedicated fund to take care of the $10,000 gap that we have that needs to be taken care of in about 8 years. And dedicated funding has to come by probably either a gas tax or a license fee. And if it doesn't, the problem, of course, is even though we have a pretty good bottom line right now in state government, as soon as the first recession comes through, if you're using that for transportation, all of a sudden the recession comes along and you don't have any money for your transportation. So it needs to be dedicated. There's also, of course, the bonding bill. The bonding bill can be used for bridges, you know, in some other areas. So there's actually two places, but I think the dedicated funding of using the gas tax is the most effective way.
Okay, Mr. Eichhorn, rebuttal?
Again, I certainly would not support a gas tax. It hurts, you know, low and middle class Minnesotans. That's supposed to be the DFL's core voting block, and you know, now we're going to hit them with another tax. You know, it's no wonder that people are fleeing the state. One area I can agree is we do need a dedicated fund for roads and bridges. We already have that, but we need to make sure again that we're spending more money on roads and bridges. You know, there's money that already comes in that gets allocated for roads and bridges. No matter what, we need to double down on that. We need to, when we look at bonding, we need to look at maybe spending more money on roads and bridges instead of, you know, goofy projects here and there, such as, you know, there was a $400,000 outhouse in northern Minnesota that people were making fun of the Democrats about a few years back. And, you know, maybe get rid of some of the junk and start focusing on core stuff that the state's about, roads and bridges.
Okay, Mr. Saxog?
Was that 400,000?
Believe it was.
I believe it wasn't. But anyway, that's a basic disagreement that we have. If we're gonna have the jobs that come out of a good transportation construction projects that we need, you got to have dedicated funding, and it's got to go on for the next 10 years.
All right, thank you. Our next question will come from Heidi Holton, and that will go to Mr. Saxog.
Senator Saxog, so elections can be contentious. Once you are elected to office, how open are you to working with your opposition, so other parties, but also convincing your constituents and your allies of a need for compromise? How do you approach it? Do you have examples of doing it?
Well, thank you for that question. In rural Minnesota, where we have a little different mix than they do down in the metropolitan area, it is absolutely important that you are able to get together and work with, you know, not just, let's not just say Republicans, Democrats, but there's lots of independents around who have their own ideas and definitely want to get this type of thing done. I have, in the last 2 years, I've been on conference committees, and one I was the chairman of State Government Finance, where we were over $300 million apart with the House, which was controlled by the Republicans, and we sat down as committee, got together, and passed a bill that apparently was satisfactory to everybody. And so I think I have the reputation down at the state capitol that you know, you can work with Saxog.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eichhorn?
Well, we most certainly need to work together. I mean, that's one of the, you know, the reasons the bonding bill got killed. It's the reason a lot of, you know, things happen at the state legislature that don't get done. I would certainly do everything I could to work together with the other side of the aisle, whether it be, you know, the Democrats or the independents. You know, that's certainly very important to do. But when we look at an issue, we got to make sure, one, that you know, it makes sense. It's a good policy, and that number one overall, it makes sense for Senate District 5. You know, that should be, you know, the core thing. Does it make sense for Senate District 5? If not, then, you know, maybe it's not an area we need to compromise on. Certainly there are plenty of areas we need to compromise, but, you know, when I go down there and, you know, spend time talking to the other representatives and senators, that, you know, that's going to be my main focus is what's good for Senate District 5. But I will certainly, you know, listen to any of the other senators or representatives to make sure that you know, we're working together, that their voices are heard by me, and, you know, make common sense decisions that will really move Minnesota forward. And I don't think we necessarily have that right now.
Okay, Mr. Saxog, any rebuttal?
Well, I think if you look at the body of work over the last 4 years, everybody points to this past bonding bill and tax bill, although there was a supplemental finance bill that was passed this last spring. But most of the great bills and the great planning and that was passed, it was in the 3 years prior to that. And I was part of that, and it was good work. There's no question about it. And so I don't think you can just take one spring and say, hey, that's the end of it. I think you've got to take the total of body work, and the last 4 years have been very good.
Okay, Mr. Eichhorn?
Well, I agree that you can certainly look at the whole body of work, but the last 2 years we had a Republican-controlled House and a DFL Senate, but the 2 years previous to that we had DFL-controlled House and Senate and governorship. And what'd that do for the state? Certainly not a lot. We see the state a lot worse off now than it was 4 years ago, certainly in many areas. There's certainly some areas in the metro that are bright spots, but I don't see anybody in outstate Minnesota going great guns as a result of policy from the DFL when they had complete control of the House and Senate. So as far as looking at the whole, I don't know. I don't. It's important to work together, like you stated, but I don't know if year 3 and 4 years ago is really the best thing to look at in general when it was one party control.
All right. Next question would go to Mr. Eichhorn, and it'll come from Dennis Wyman.
Okay, well, let's talk about what can be done to reinvigorate the economy in this part of the state. Unemployment rate is considerably higher here than it is in the metro. What would be your plan to reinvigorate the economy for our part of the state?
Well, for our part of the state, we certainly need to address the issue that is our high taxes in the area. We're one of the highest taxed, one of the highest regulated states. Certainly when it comes to the environment, we got to be careful there, but we need to peel back some of that taxing and regulation. We need to make Minnesota, on par with our neighboring states especially, but we need to make Minnesota, a leader throughout the country to attract businesses here. We talk about diversifying our area and diversifying the range. We need to make sure that our core industries here, the tourism and the timber and the mining, have a good environment so they can stick around. But then that same environment, by fostering, lower taxes and, that type of thing, it's going to bring more industries into the area if we give them the opportunity to grow with our area. And certainly we're not doing that now with the way we do things at the state level. We're scaring people away, and it's unfortunate.
Mr. Saxog?
Well, it's kind of interesting that the Department of Economic Development admitted this year that the cities of Bemidji and Grand Rapids had roughly 2/3 of the unemployment rate that was thought that they had. And so we're down here to 4.5% to 5%. So it may not be quite as bad as we're thinking about. But there's no question about it that our part of the country has low tax base. We've got a lot of public land. And so that's one of the problems we have is we don't have the money to do our infrastructure. What the DFL has been trying to do here is get the local government aid and the county aid back to where it was at the turn of the century, back in 2004, 2005, and so that there will be money for infrastructure in this part of the country. There's no question about it either that this part of the country is natural resources based. We can talk about all the other things we're going to do, but when you're talking about forestry, the tourism industry, mining, all those particular things, we need to do them right. We need to continue to do them, and if we do, we'll be successful.
All right. Mr. Eichhorn, any rebuttal?
One of the things he mentioned was the state lands, and I guess I'm not really sure how the state lands are really doing anything for us in terms of tax base or lower taxes. That's land that's off the tax rolls, and so that tax burden is shouldered by the rest of the people that are paying taxes that are on the tax rolls, not nonprofits or government land. We talked about the unemployment rate being lower than it actually is, and I'm not really certain that is either. We talk about the real unemployment rate when they calculate that in. People that have quit looking for work get thrown out of that, and that certainly can lower the rate. As you go around Grand Rapids, Bemidji's pretty lively, but as you get going towards the east end of the district, it seems to just go downhill and get worse and worse. I mean, there's just not the opportunity that's there that there was even 5 years ago. And part of that is we're chasing the businesses out of the district. We're not creating a good environment for them.
Mr. Saxon, a rebuttal?
Well, east end of the district, that's the scenic highway, it isn't all that far over. But I would say this, that the public land, although it doesn't, obviously doesn't pay taxes, it does in one way or another, from whether it's the county or the state or the federal government, gets some type of payment in lieu of taxes. And that payment in lieu of taxes, whereas it is not anywhere close to being what just regular taxes, property taxes would be, nonetheless does fill somewhat of a void.
All right. Let's move on to our next question. That'll go to Mr. Saxhag, and it'll come from our panelist, Matthew Lidke.
Senator Saxhag, I'd like to ask about invasive species. The state has already done some things providing funds to the counties to fight invasive species, but more recently some more invasive species were found in Beltrami County. Does the state need to take more initiatives to combat invasive species?
Well, I think that the state does do a lot for invasive species, and we have It starts with a department at the University of Minnesota, which studies each one of the invasive species that we have. And let's remember that aquatic seems to be out front, and we're talking about the conical. Oh, we talked about it before, but you know, there's a new one that's come up. There's no question about that in Cass Lake and Turtle Lake, but we also have terrestrial invasive species, you know, which aren't in the water, that are on the land, and they're all really important. And it just comes off this last economic development question, is in the fact that we make our money up here and acquire our jobs, our basic jobs, from natural resource-based industries. And if our natural resources are threatened by aquatic species, we're in trouble. We have been investing in aquatic and terrestrial invasive species, and will continue to.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eichhorn?
This is probably one of the rare occurrences this evening where my opponent and I will agree. Our natural resources is one of our largest economic benefits here, and that is definitely a role of state government, is, you know, making sure that, you know, these invasive species are either eliminated or held under control and not spread in a greater fashion. So I agree that we should continue to spend money as a state to make sure that they're not furthered in any way. You know, I think that is one of our responsibilities to our environment and our area and the people here, and would certainly support, you know, any kind of measure that would, you know, help eliminate or alleviate some of those issues caused by the invasive.
Okay. Mr. Saxhag, any comments? Any other comments?
No, I was at the, say no and then say something. That's the way I go, yeah. Well, I was over at Cass Lake, where the DNR and a whole group of agencies got together to talk about this. I think it's been 2.5 weeks now. And again, I'm happy with the fact that the feds and the state and the counties and private resort owners are all getting together quickly to take care of this.
Okay. Mr. Eichhorn? Any rebuttal? No. All right. We'll move on to our next question, and that'll go to Mr. Eichhorn, and that will come from our Heidi Holton.
So today, October 10th, Bemidji and Grand Rapids are celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. Identity and race are issues in our country and in rural Minnesota. What do you see your role as Senator in District 5 in terms of race and diversity?
Well, unfortunately, I think some of the race issues have been used as a distraction from some of the bigger issues we have in the community. Certainly, the race relations are important, and we need to certainly respect, you know, the Native communities that are here, the African American communities, although we don't have as many of those in Senate District 5. There's certainly a place for that, but to a large degree, I think sometimes, you know, these issues such as that, you know, just play to a distraction. And it's really unfortunate, because their issues are certainly important. They're important to me, they're important to the state. but it should be more than just that. We really need to get back to talking about jobs and economy. If we improve, the economic outlook for the entire area, that's certainly going to help some of those minority groups. And that's pretty much where I'm at on that.
All right, Mr. Saxog?
Well, Indian education, particularly in District 5, but generally in northern Minnesota, has taken some huge strides in the last number of years. We, with the help of Governor Dayton, basically took a per capita basis. Any Native American kid it gets X amount of dollars each year, and it goes to his school system, who can then start the cultural education that's needed. We've also been working extremely hard on vocational education for Indian education, and I'm happy with what's happening there. Lastly, although this was the building of the high school will be federal, the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig School is going to have a new high school, but the state of Minnesota stepped forward and offered money for a 2-year period of time to keep the Bug-O-Nay-Ge-Shig going until it's built. So I feel good about what we're doing in Native American education.
Okay. Mr. Eichhorn, a rebuttal?
Nope.
Okay. Mr. Saxog, any other comment?
No, I'm fine.
All right. Our next question will go to Mr. Saxog, and it'll come from Dennis Wyman.
What do you see as the key issues, forestry issues in the future, and how should the state legislature deal with them?
Well, I think that forestry issues are in the first 10 years of the legislature, we just plain didn't spend any money on them through the Department of Natural Resources. Most Department of Natural Resources areas, whether it's fishing or hunting or whatever, are done through dedicated funds. But when we start talking about forestry, it goes through the general fund, and that was cut down enormously in the first 10 years. In the last 4 years, we have invested much more money in forest management, almost $3.5 million, and also just in place in reforestation. And I think that if you talk to the DNR foresters, if you talk to our land commissioners who run our forests in our counties, and in fact, if you talk to the Chippewa National Forest and those people who run those forests, you will find that they believe that we are moving forward on a positive basis on how we're managing our forests.
Mr. Eichhorn?
I can agree to some degree that we are certainly, managing our forests in a great way, and we have a lot of great people in place. And as a state, that's one of our core natural resources and one of our core economic resources here in Senate 5. So we need to continue to support that industry and the forestry. It's it's important for all the area, and I would certainly be a good steward of carrying that message to make sure that anytime a forestry type issue came up, that we would support it. Again, it speaks to what our core issues are here in Senate District 5, and that's certainly at the top of the list. How do we deal with that? We certainly rely on some of the agencies to take care of that, and I think, as Mr. Saxog said, to some degree we're doing a pretty good job there already.
All right. Mr. Saxog, any rebuttal?
Well, what I neglected to mention is that we've also invested a couple of $2 million in extra foresters to go out and help private forest lands, which are potential and almost 35% of the forests in the state of Minnesota, to help them set up forest plans so that they can manage their lands, and if they want to, they can use them for the forest and the forest products that we need so desperately.
Mr. Icorn, any other comment?
Nope.
Okay. Our next question comes from Matthew Lidke, and it goes to Mr. Icorn.
Mr. Icorn, recently the Red Lake Nation has invested in a large initiative on solar power, and I was wondering if elected, would you do anything at the state capitol to support more renewable energy initiatives such as wind or solar power?
I think like anything we look at the state legislature, we need to be, very careful about how we're spending. And I don't, I'm not sold on solar or wind yet. You see a lot of those that aren't really as efficient as they're being sold to us as. So that's something that I would certainly take a close look at. I can't tell you whether or not I'd be on board. Like any other issue at the state capitol, I'd certainly look at it and see if it made sense for Senate District 5 specifically. But as far as what I've seen on solar and wind, it's just I don't know if it's necessarily the right direction for us right now. There's a lot of clean coal options that we should certainly be looking at as well. It's a cheaper source of energy, and it's source of energy that could help us in the mines and the paper mill and that type of stuff. And I think we need to foster an environment where coal is also a viable option in the area. I'm not saying that solar and wind shouldn't be a viable option. I just say we need to maybe take a little closer at it as far as spending state dollars to do that. If somebody wants to do it privately, good for them. I'll certainly support that effort. But as far as spending state dollars on it, it depends on what it is. I'd have to look at the individual proposal.
Mr. Saxog?
Well, I believe in solar energy and wind energy. I'm not exactly sure if it is, if we have to, at this particular time, invest a lot more money in rural Minnesota, particularly rural northern Minnesota and northeastern Minnesota, in solar and wind industry. The state of Minnesota has invested a lot in programs, mostly through Excel, for that portion of the state which has very little industrial need for energy and has a lot of residential. And that's proved to be a very good thing. Do I think that northern Minnesota is the same as residential metro Minneapolis, St. Paul? Not really. So I'm willing to look at anything. I just don't think that up here is necessarily the place to be right now for solar and wind investment.
All right, Mr. Icorn, any rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Okay. Mr. Saxog, any?
I'm
another
fine.
comment?
Thank
All
you.
right. Well, we've come to the point of our debate where we need to move on now to our closing comments. And so, let's see, we just finished with, and so we have Mr. Icorn with closing comment.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the panel again. We certainly appreciate you guys. So I'm Justin Icorn again. I'm running for Senate District 5, and I appreciate you watching in your homes this evening and listening to us. I would love the opportunity to earn your support. I would love the opportunity to talk to you at home more. If you can, go to my website, send me an email, go ahead and call me. I would certainly welcome that conversation. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to talk about all the issues. There's certainly more out there that there is to talk about, and I hope in other forums and debates and other avenues we certainly have the opportunity to talk about that. I'm ready to move forward and make sure our district is represented well. And with my only lobbying group, the only special interest group I'll have is the people of Senate District 5, and I think that's something that's gotten lost on a lot of our representatives and senators. They get to be there so long they lose sight of why they went and what they're really fighting for, and it's unfortunate. So it's certainly time for a change, and I think the electorate of Senate District 5 is ready for that change as well. So I thank you again for your time this evening, and I hope to hear from you soon. And I would love the opportunity to serve as your senator from Senate District 5, and I would appreciate your vote this November. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yep. Mr. Saxog.
Thank you. Well, this is the first debate in the new building that was built with Bonnie dollars, and I think you did a pretty good job, and I hope Justin and I authenticated it well. We were the first ones in here, so. In the last term, I chaired the State Department's and Veterans Budget Division. I also served on Finance, Education, Environment, Economic Development Committees. We were able to balance our state's budget after 10 years of deficits. We paid back billions of dollars owed to our schools, increased funding at the state level to reduce local property taxes, and created the largest surplus Minnesota has had in decades. But more work needs to be done to continue to move in the right direction. The most important issue facing our region is education. We need to make sure our schools get the resources that they deserve. I'm proud of the investments we made to support our students in recent years, especially the $9.3 million increase that we helped secure for the Native American students. For the last 14 years as state senator, I have worked tirelessly to promote our northern Minnesota way of life in St. Paul. I have championed issues of forestry to create healthy, sustainable, multi-use forests and good paying jobs that go with them. I served on the Lessard-Sams Outdoor Heritage Council, funding projects to resort and protect and enhance Minnesota's wetlands, prairies, and forests. And as a member of Explore Minnesota Tourism, I was able to secure the largest funding increase ever in tourism all across the state. I will continue to author and support legislation that makes improvements to our way of life in northern Minnesota. I'm Tom Saxog, and I hope you can support me on November 8th.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to take this time to thank the candidates for participating in our debate this evening. I have a great amount of admiration for individuals who are willing to serve our wonderful communities and the great state of Minnesota. I would also like to just remember that we will have additional debates right here at Lakeland Public Television. If you missed any portion of tonight's debate and would like to watch it again, it will be available on Lakeland Public Television website within 24 hours. That website is lptv.org. Also, to read a recap of tonight's debate, you can pick up a copy of tomorrow's Bemidji Pioneer or log on to the Bemidji Pioneer website at bemidjipioneer.com. Please stay tuned. At 8 p.m. we have House 5A Representative John Purcell from the DFL Party and Matt Bliss from the Republican Party. Good night and thanks for watching.
Oh.